Welcome to Forum 360, a global outlook with a local view. We're a nonprofit organization funded by grants and donations. To find out more about us and how to access our programs, go to forum360.org. I'm your host, Pat Simons. The 2020 general election on November 3rd, being a presidential election, we can expect a high voter turnout. And it's happening in the middle of a pandemic. The Ohio Secretary of State, the county boards of election, and voter service organizations are working hard to assure a safe, fair, and secure election. But it's the county boards of elections who are tasked with making it happen. My guest is Tom Bevan, Esquire, of the law firm Bevan and Associates, and he is a current board member on the Summit County Board of Elections. He's here to provide voter information that ensures our votes count. Welcome, Thomas Bevan.
Good morning, Pat, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We have a lot of information that we'd like to share with our viewers, and so if you don't mind, I'm going to dive right in. Could you give us just a brief description of the relationship between the Ohio Secretary of State and the county boards of election?
Well, the county boards of election, which run our elections here in Ohio, they are employees of the county where they're located. So the Summit County Board of Elections, the board members and the employees there are Summit County employees, but we act under the authority of the Ohio Secretary of State. We take our directives from the Ohio Secretary of State.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That explains that a little, makes it a little clearer. Now, who serves on the actual Board of Elections, and are you appointed, and what is your term?
So each Board of Elections has 4 members. There are 2 Republican members, 2 Democrat members on each board. The board members are appointed by the Secretary of State to 4-year terms.
And are those terms renewed every 4 years approximately? Or?
Yeah, and it's not always the same people, but yes, every 4 years you're up for reappointment. The local county political parties central committee makes a recommendation to the Secretary of State as to who from that party should be appointed, and then the Secretary of State, if the Secretary of State agrees with the recommendation, then makes the appointment to the Board of Elections.
Now, must all board members and staff be equally represented by the Democratic and Republican parties?
Yeah, so it really is a bipartisan organization. For every Democratic member of the board, there's a Republican member of the board. For every Republican employee at the Board of Elections, there's a corresponding Democratic employee. So everybody works in teams of 2, and they are, again, 1 Republican and 1 Democrat in each one of those teams.
Oh, thank you. Now, you don't levy funds. So what are your funding sources?
We are funded primarily by the counties where we're located. So in Summit County, the Summit County Council provides our funding.
Oh.
There are special grants or programs sometimes offered by the Secretary of State that provide some funding for specific things that are going on, but primarily our funding comes from the counties that we serve.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, I know that you received money from the CARES Act that was passed by Congress a few months ago. Where's that money being directed?
And the CARES Act, of course, comes through the counties, and we have used CARES Act money for some pandemic-related expenses, such as the extension or the change to the primary election that we had this year did create an expense to our Board of Elections, and we were able to use CARES Act money for that. We can use CARES Act money for personal protective devices such as masks, cleaning supplies. We have partitions that we've installed both in our offices there, as well as in the areas where we interact with the public. I think we'll be able to use CARES Act for what we expect will be an increased cost related to a significantly increased number of absentee ballots that we'll have to process this year. So things that are clearly related to the pandemic, we can use some of that CARES Act funds for those items.
It's nice to be able to follow when the federal government sends money down to the local efforts. What is the final date for voters to register to vote or check that their registration is current, and how do they do that?
Well, the final date to register, you can register to vote at any time. And the final date to be able to register and vote in the general election on November 3rd is October 5th. You register to vote October 6th, October 10th, but you won't be eligible to vote in the November 3rd election. So if you want to vote in the November 3rd election, October 5th is the deadline. To check to make sure that you're registered to vote, you could go to the Summit County Board of Elections site in Summit County, of course. That's www.summitcountyboe.gov. But all county boards of election have a Board of Elections site that you could search and make sure that you are in fact registered to vote in that county. So you can do that anytime, all the way up. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can check to see if you're registered.
That's a good distinction, though, if you want to be in on the November 3rd election. I'd like to dive into the 3 voting options available to voters, and all of them have been endorsed and are promoted by the Ohio Secretary of State and the Ohio Association of Election Officials. Let's start off with absentee voting, which is also called mail-in voting. What is the process for that?
Well, and to be clear, in Ohio, absentee voting and mail voting are the same thing. There's no difference between the two, and anybody can file an application. We have a form, an absentee ballot application form that needs to be mailed to your local Board of Elections. That form, in fact, all of your viewers should have received that form if they're registered to vote, should have received that form from the Ohio Secretary of State a couple weeks ago. I think they were mailed out the week of September 1st. There is also some private organizations that mail those out as well. They're same form, just as good. Private individuals or organizations are entitled to mail that form out as well, but you have to complete that form, complete all the information that's required, and send that to your, you have to sign the form, and you send that to your local Board of Elections. So Summit County, and I'm sure is no different than any other county in the state right now, we are being inundated with these applications for absentee ballot forms. And so the local Board of Elections will process that form, make sure that you're registered to vote, make sure that the information that is required is on the form. And then if it's everything is done correctly, on October 6th, the local boards of election will start to mail out those absentee ballots. So again, it's a 2-step process. Step 1 is you have to send in your absentee ballot application. Step 2 is you receive the ballot, you have to complete your ballot and mail that back as well. As I said, the first day the boards of election can start mailing those forms out is October 6th. I am personally, but we are at the Summit County Board of Elections, are urging our voters to get your applications in as soon as possible. Do not wait. There's no reason to wait. I believe the Secretary of State's letter that was sent out a couple weeks ago indicated a deadline of October 27th to return those ballots, or those absentee ballot applications. The local boards of election, we're under a directive that we have to provide absentee ballot applications for anybody where we receive the application by noon on October 31st. So that's Saturday before election. If we receive your absentee ballot application by noon on the Saturday before election, then we will send you an absentee ballot. The problem with that date is that if we don't send it to you until Saturday, October 31st, the likelihood of you being able to get your absentee ballot and get it back to us in time is pretty slim, frankly. So that date is not soon enough, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of our Board of Elections. So we are encouraging people to get that in as quickly as possible. So you were on the one of the first ones to get your absentee ballot.
Rule of thumb then would be do everything as quickly as possible. No
absolutely.
No reason to wait. And when the ballot comes, be prepared to vote, fill it out, and get it returned. It sounds like it's pretty, and the other thing that people may not be aware is you offer a vote tracker on your website that is really valuable, that is really assuring. I mean, I use it. Can you describe the vote tracker?
Yeah, so you could, so we have a link on our website to track your vote, to make sure that your absentee ballot has been sent to you, and then to make sure that they received it when after you filled it out and sent it back in October. So it's very helpful if anybody that is concerned about voting by mail. You can track your ballot and make sure that the Board of Elections got your ballot, and then you know your ballot will count.
How important is it for a voter to have an actual postmark on a ballot?
Again, it depends on the timing. So we at the Summit County Board of Elections and across the Board of Elections across the state, any ballots that we receive by 7:30 on election day, so by 7:30 on November 3rd, if we receive that ballot, whether it has a postmark on it or not, we will count that ballot. If we don't receive it by then, if we receive it on November 4th, then it must have a postmark.
Oh, I see.
Postmark must be November 2nd, not election day. It's not okay to put your ballot in the mail on election day. It will not count. So the ballots will have to be postmarked by November 2nd, the day before election day. So we receive it on the 10th, and it has a November 2nd postmark, we will count it. But if we receive it on November 4th and it has a November 3rd postmark, we will not count it.
Well, there's a lot of concern about the movement of the ballots through the U.S. Postal Service. Are you working with the Postal Service to help with timely delivery?
Yes, and we are meeting with the Postal Service on a weekly basis. Our board employees are meeting on a weekly basis. We actually had a Zoom call like this with three members of the United States Postal Service, including their National Director of Election Mail, and then the Regional Director of Election Mail, as well as the local person from the Cleveland Post Office. It was really a great meeting, and I felt really good coming out of that the Postal Service is committed to timely delivering ballots this year. The ballot envelopes that the boards will provide will be distinctly marked, so that the Postal Service will know that this is an election ballot, and they have procedures in place to sweep their facilities every night to make sure that there's no ballots lying around that aren't being delivered. So everything should move very expeditiously, and we're pretty confident that voting by mail is a very safe and effective way to vote this year.
That's very assuring because of all the chat about the Postal Service, to know that you're working hand in glove with them to make this happen. It's very assuring. I did want to mention there are other methods of bringing in the ballot, and one is hand delivery to the Board of Elections offices. You can hand deliver, or you can take them to a ballot Dropbox. Where is that located, and what hours are the access, and is it a secure method?
So we have a ballot Dropbox at the Summit County Board of Elections, and every county has one and only one ballot Dropbox. Ours will be set up as a drive-by Dropbox. It'll be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with security cameras monitoring the Dropbox as well. So it is sufficient to drop off your ballot at the Board of Elections. Again, you have to drop it off no later than 7:30 on election day, November 3rd. So you could drop it off at 7:29 on November 3rd, and your ballot will count.
So any misgivings about the U.S. Postal Service can be overridden by hand delivery to the offices or to the Dropbox. If you've just tuned in, this is Forum 360, and my guest is board member Thomas Bevan of the Summit County Board of Elections, and he's giving us information on the 2020 election. I just would like to just mention for our audience to remind them that once they have voted their absentee ballot, it cannot be returned to their local polling location. That is an error sometimes made. It must either be mailed or hand delivered. So I just wanted to put that plug in. The other option for voting is early in-person voting. And where does that take place and what are the dates and times?
Every county will have a location for early in-person voting, which is really the same as absentee ballot voting. It's just that you go to the in-person voting location, you fill out your absentee ballot application, they give you it, you vote right there, you return it, and you're done. So it's really a one-stop option to vote. And so early voting will start at in Summit County, we have an early voting building location right next to our Board of Elections headquarters, which is designed for handling the early voting for all elections. It starts, early voting this year starts on October 6th. And every county has the same early voting hours across the state. And those first 2 weeks, it starts on a Tuesday through Friday, and then the following week, Monday through Friday, the hours are 8 to 5 o'clock. So you can come in and vote in person during those time frames. The week of October 19th, it gets expanded to 8 to 6 o'clock. And then the week of October 26th, it's expanded to 8 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. But we do have 2 weekends. The 2 weekends before the election, early voting will also be open. So on Saturday, the 24th of October and Saturday, the 31st of October, the early voting locations will be open from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock, 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, October 25th and Sunday, November 1st, it's from 1 to 5. So if you go on any Board of Elections site, there should be a schedule. It's real easy to get to on the Summit County Board of Elections site. There's a link that you can click that shows, give you a calendar that shows the early voting location as well as the times.
Now, the third option is the traditional voting in person at your local polling location, and that happens on Election Day, November 3rd. And the hours stated are the same as always, open at 6:30 a.m., closing at 7:30 p.m. When you consider the in-person voting either early or at the local polling location, what are the COVID-19 concerns and how are you dealing with health precautions?
Well, it certainly is my opinion, and I believe that the opinion of our board, that voting by mail really is a matter of public health. We are encouraging people to vote by mail this year. It's the best way that we can protect our employees that are going to be working at the polling locations. It's the best way that we could protect our voters. It's the best way that we could protect the public in general. So we are urging and expecting a large number of people to vote by mail. I expect it to be somewhere between 60 and 80%. To give you kind of a comparison, in 2016, we had 62,000 people in all of 2016 that voted by mail or early in person. We have so far at the Summit County Board of Elections, and this was as of a week ago, we were at 90,000 absentee ballot requests. So we are already significantly higher, and we're over 50 days before the election still. So I would expect that number to get up, hopefully in the 120 to 150,000 range in Summit County, which will greatly reduce the number of people that we have voted in person. At our polling locations, we are abiding by social distancing requirements. All of our employees will be wearing masks. All of our voting stalls will be at least 6 foot apart to provide the appropriate social distancing for our voters. The result of that is in some areas, we'll have less voting stalls than what we normally have. In our great examples in our early voting center down at the Board of Elections in Akron, we will have about 1/5 the number of voting stalls that we normally have there. So if we have the same number of voters that vote in person early, or the same number of voters that vote in person on Election Day, that would create significant lines. But again, we are confident that we're going to have many less voters in person and whether it's early or on election day. So a good example is usually that weekend before the election, we have a large number of people that vote in person at the Board of Elections. If we have that same number of people, we have 1/4 the number of voting stalls. Those half-hour lines or hour-long lines are going to be 2 or 4 hour-long lines. So we are encouraging those people, don't wait until, if you want to vote in person, don't wait until that weekend before the election. Do it ahead of time, and even better yet, to vote by mail, which is a very safe and effective alternative.
That is, that's really good advice. And I'm going to put a quick plug in. I know that poll workers they're looking for poll workers. And I would encourage the audience to consider training and working the day, and they get paid for the position. And that could help you out as well. We're kind of running short on time, but I have a question that I think that voters might be curious about. There's a lot of talk about delayed voting results. And should voters be discouraged or suspicious that election results are questionable if they're delayed? And if they are, why might that happen?
Well, there's certainly no reason for suspicion or to be discouraged. And I think this is going to be a trend going forward. As more and more people vote by mail, it will create a delay in election results. Not several months long, it'll create several days long delay. So as I indicated to you before, if we receive a ballot postmarked November 2nd, but we don't receive it until November 5th or November 8th or November 9th, we are going to count that ballot. And so there could be a fair number of ballots coming into the Summit County Board of Elections or any Board of Elections across the state after election night. So we will, because there'll be so many people that will be voting by mail this year, we will have a lot of the results very early this year because those votes will be scanned and ready to be tabulated as soon as clock strikes 7:30. So sometime not long after 7:30 in Summit County, we'll start tabulating most of those absentee ballots. But on a close election, again, it depends on how close elections are. But if we have a close election, there will be hundreds, maybe thousands of votes coming in our counties after election night. And those will be valid votes by mail. And we will not start to do our official canvass until sometime after the 14th of November. And in Summit County, we are already scheduled for November 24th to certify our official canvass. So if it's a close election, it might be several days before we know the results. And that's what we can expect. And there's no reason to be discouraged or frustrated.
It sounds like a lot of long days and a lot of long nights getting this all reported correctly. And it sounds like if you keep the public informed and they know what's happening, there would be less questioning of why it might be delayed. So it sounds like you're on it. Well, this has been a lightning round of fact checking, and I really appreciate Tom Bevan from the Board of Elections in Summit County for coming on today and helping us with updated voter information and assuring us that our votes will count. Mr. Bevan, please extend our thanks to the full board, the administration, and the staff who work very hard on our behalf.
Thanks,
Great. If you want more information, you can also go to the Ohio Secretary of State website at ohiosos.gov. And if you are listening from outside of the county, the Secretary of State has a directory for all county boards of elections, and you can contact them from there as well. In closing, we are fast approaching the general election. Our democracy is best served when we exercise our voting franchise. Be well informed and make sure your vote counts. This is Pat Simons for Forum 360. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.